Keep me here and I'll give you what no other woman can. Apache woman to the cowboy. Samuel rode slowly through the dusty trail, the sun hanging low in the sky like a glowing orange coin. The wind was dry and carried the faint smell of sage and earth. He had been traveling alone for days, moving cautiously through the wide stretches of Arizona, where the land seemed endless and unforgiving. His horse, a sturdy chestnut mare named Clara, walked with careful steps, as if sensing the danger that often hid behind the beauty of the desert. Samuel was used to the solitude. He had lived most of his life as a cowboy, moving from town to town, taking odd jobs on ranches, and carrying a restless heart wherever the trail led him. He had heard stories of Apache settlements in this area, whispered around campfires and dusty saloons. Some spoke of fierce warriors, others of women who were as clever as the men in battle. Samuel didn't know what to believe, but he had learned long ago to respect the land and the people who lived on it. The desert demanded respect. It gave nothing to those who were careless or proud. As he rode, Samuel's eyes caught a glimpse of something unusual. There, near the edge of a deep canyon, he saw smoke rising in thin, curling ribbons. His curiosity was piqued, but he also felt caution. Approaching unknown settlements could be dangerous. Samuel slowed Clara and guided her along a hidden path through rocks and low bushes, trying to stay unseen. He wanted to observe first to understand who lived there and if they posed a threat. From a distance, he could see small huts made of mud and wood, nestled cleverly against the rocks. Children ran and played near the fire, and women moved gracefully, carrying water and tending to their daily chores. It was a peaceful scene, a contrast to the harshness of the desert around them. Samuel felt a mix of awe and nervousness. He had seen many towns, but this place seemed alive with a different kind of strength, a rhythm that came from living close to the land, not trying to tame it. He stayed hidden for a while, observing. Then, suddenly, he saw her. She stepped out from behind a hut, carrying a small basket of herbs. Her movements were confident, almost commanding, even though she was alone. Her dark hair shone under the sunlight, and her eyes held a sharp intelligence that made Samuel pause. There was something about the way she looked at the world, alert and unafraid, that made him both nervous and curious. He had met many women in his life, but none like her. Samuel dismounted quietly, tying Clara to a low tree, and took a few careful steps forward. The wind shifted, and the faint sound of his boots on the dry ground reached her. She turned quickly, her eyes locking onto his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Words were not needed at first. There was a recognition in her gaze, as if she could see him fully in one glance, judging his intentions and the truth behind them. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm but carried authority. "You are far from your path, cowboy," she said. "Why do you come here?" Samuel hesitated. He could have lied, but something in him made him speak honestly. To be those who break back from both. "I am traveling through these lands," he said slowly. "I meant no harm. I was curious about your settlement." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Curiosity can be dangerous," she said, "but it can also bring knowledge, if one is willing to learn." Samuel felt a spark of intrigue. He had spent his life traveling, seeing the world in pieces, never understanding fully the people or the land he passed through. This woman, whoever she was, seemed different. She had confidence, knowledge, and something else, an energy that made him want to listen and learn. Then, without warning, she said words that made his heart skip a beat. "Keep me here," she said, her tone steady, "and I'll give you what no other woman can." Samuel blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Her words were bold, almost daring. He felt a mix of curiosity, caution, and something else he couldn't name. What do you mean?" he asked, careful not to show too much surprise. She placed her basket down and stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I know these lands," she said. "I know where water hides, where food can be found, and where danger waits. I can guide you, teach you things that no one else can. But you must trust me." Samuel studied her, thinking of all the stories he had heard about settlers and Native Americans, about conflicts and misunderstandings. He knew the risks, but he also knew that life in the desert demanded allies, and perhaps there was no one better to guide him than this woman, with her sharp mind and fearless spirit. "I don't usually trust strangers," he admitted, "especially in these lands. But maybe I should listen." She nodded. "Listening is the first step," she said. "The second is learning. If you are willing, I can show you things you never imagined, survive in ways most men cannot." For a long moment, Samuel considered her words. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the rocks. The wind carried the faint scent of herbs from her basket, and he felt a strange calm in her presence, as if the desert itself had given his heart a brief moment of rest. He realized then that her offer was more than just about survival. It was about understanding a world he had only seen in pieces, about seeing life through eyes that were different from his own. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I'll stay and learn. Show me what you know." A small smile appeared on her face, and for the first time Samuel saw a hint of warmth beneath her cautious exterior. "Then we begin," she said, her voice firm but inviting. As the sun set behind the canyon, casting a golden glow across the settlement, Samuel felt a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. He did not yet know the challenges ahead, the dangers of the desert, or the bond that would grow between them. But in that moment, standing beside a woman who offered knowledge, courage, and a different way of seeing the world, he felt a spark of something extraordinary, a connection that promised adventure, learning, and perhaps even trust in a place where trust was rare. Samuel did not yet understand the full meaning of her words, "I'll give you what no other woman can," but he knew one thing for certain. This encounter would change his life, and the desert, with all its beauty and danger, was about to teach him lessons he could never learn on his own. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Samuel sat by the fire outside the huts, listening as the settlement settled into quiet. He felt the presence of the woman near him, calm and watchful, and realized that this journey, which had begun as simple curiosity, was turning into something far greater. He would learn from her, rely on her, and perhaps even see the world in ways he had never imagined. And the desert, vast and endless, waited silently, ready to reveal its secrets to those who dared to look closely. The next morning, the desert air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of sagebrush and warm earth. Samuel awoke before the sun had fully risen, sitting quietly near the fire where he had slept. He watched as the settlement began to stir. Children ran laughing across the dusty ground, chasing each other and kicking up small clouds of sand. Men carried bundles of firewood, and women moved gracefully between the huts, attending to chores with skill and care, but his eyes were drawn to her, the Apache woman, Ayita. She moved with purpose, her steps sure and deliberate, her hands busy with small tasks that seemed ordinary but held deeper meaning. Samuel realized that every movement she made reflected knowledge and understanding he did not yet have. From the way she gathered herbs to how she checked the water in the containers, everything seemed intentional, as if she were in tune with the land itself. He had learned many things as a cowboy: how to ride, how to survive harsh weather, how to calm a frightened horse. but what Aita offered seemed far beyond anything he had known. "Breakfast is ready," she said, her voice calm but commanding. He noticed that the words were more than an invitation. They carried the sense that he was stepping into her world now, a world where patience and observation mattered more than speed and force. Samuel sat and accepted the simple meal she offered: roasted corn, fresh herbs, and water from a nearby spring. He tried it carefully, curious about the flavors. Aita watched him closely, but without judgment. There was something almost teaching in her gaze, as if she were guiding him silently before even speaking. After the meal, she motioned for him to follow. They walked toward the edge of the settlement, where the desert opened up into wide, rolling land. She pointed to a cluster of rocks in the distance. "Do you see those?" she asked. Many travelers would miss the path between them. Most would walk right past, not noticing the trail hidden there. Samuel leaned forward, squinting. He had spent years traveling the desert, but the details she pointed out had been invisible to him. "I would never have seen that," he admitted. "That is why I am here," Aita said. "I know the land. I know its secrets. I can show you how to survive in ways no one else can. But you must pay attention and respect what I teach." The desert does not forgive carelessness. For the next several hours she guided him carefully, teaching him small lessons that seemed ordinary at first, but revealed themselves to be remarkable. She showed him how to read the tracks of animals in the sand, to tell the direction of the wind from the movement of leaves, and to predict rain by observing clouds and the behavior of birds. Samuel listened intently, realizing that this knowledge, which seemed natural to her, could mean the difference between life and death in the harsh desert environment. "You see that bush over there?" she asked. "Its leaves may look ordinary, but it holds water in its roots. If you ever run out, it could save you. And over there, near the rocks, you will find small pools of water that the sun cannot reach. They are hidden, but life depends on finding them." Samuel felt a mix of awe and gratitude. He had always relied on his strength, his riding skills, and his luck, but Aita taught him that survival was also about observation, patience, and understanding the land. He realized that her words from the day before, "I'll give you what no other woman can," were not just empty promises. They were true. As they traveled, Aita began to tell him stories of her people, of how they lived in harmony with the land for generations. She spoke of the seasons, the animals, and the spirits that her people believed protected the desert. Samuel listened, fascinated. He had heard stories of Native Americans before, but hearing them from someone who had lived them gave the tales depth and meaning he had never imagined. "You must respect the land," she said. "It is not just dirt and rocks. It gives life and takes it away. Understanding it is more important than any weapon or skill a man can have." Samuel nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He thought about all the times he had underestimated the desert, believing his own strength would carry him through. He realized that he had been lucky, and that luck could run out at any moment. With Aita's guidance, he began to feel a sense of confidence that came not from strength alone, but from knowledge. As the sun climbed higher, they stopped near a small cluster of trees that provided shade from the relentless heat. Aita knelt by the roots, demonstrating how to dig carefully to find water hidden beneath the surface. Samuel tried, his hands brushing against dry soil before finally reaching a small spring of clear water. He felt a sense of accomplishment and pride, but also a growing respect for her patience and expertise. "You see," she said with a quiet smile, "survival is not about force. It is about understanding, observing, and learning. Most people never notice what is right in front of them." Samuel looked at her and realized that this was the real gift she offered. not just knowledge of the land, but a new way of seeing the world. She had patience, wisdom, and courage, and she was willing to share it with him if he could listen and respect her teachings. They continued their journey, moving through the desert with a rhythm that began to feel natural to Samuel. He learned to notice subtle signs, the smell of distant rain, the tracks of a coyote, the shadows cast by rocks that indicated hidden paths. With each lesson, he felt more connected to the land and to Aita, who guided him with a quiet confidence that left no room for doubt. By late afternoon, they reached a narrow canyon, its walls steep and rough. Aita paused and looked at him seriously. "This path is dangerous," she said. "Many have tried to cross it without knowing the right way and have never returned. But I will guide you safely, if you trust me." Samuel felt a shiver of fear, but also a thrill of excitement. He had faced danger before, but nothing like this. He nodded, placing his hand on his horse's reins and following her into the shadowed canyon. Step by step, she led him carefully, showing him where to place his feet, how to move quietly, and where to find holds on the rocky walls. He realized that her skill was not just physical, but instinctive, a deep knowledge that came from experience and trust in her own abilities. As they emerged from the canyon safely, Samuel felt a sense of awe. He had survived a dangerous path that he would never have managed alone. He looked at Aita, and for the first time he truly understood the weight of her promise. She had given him something no other woman could: knowledge, courage, and the ability to survive in a world that could be both beautiful and deadly. That night, as they made camp near a small spring, Samuel reflected on the day's lessons. He realized that Aita had begun to change him, not just as a traveler in the desert, but as a man who had relied too much on luck and strength. He had learned humility, patience, and respect, and he felt a deep gratitude for the woman who had guided him. Aita sat near the fire, tending it carefully, her eyes reflecting the dancing flames. Samuel approached her and spoke quietly. "I never imagined the desert could teach me so much. Thank you for showing me the way." She looked at him with a small smile. "You are learning," she said. "Ah, and you will learn more, but remember, the land is not just a teacher. It is also a test. If you forget what you have learned, it will remind you in ways you do not want." Samuel nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He understood that this journey was just beginning, that the desert held many challenges, and that Aita's guidance was more valuable than anything he had known before. As he lay down that night under the endless sky, stars stretching as far as he could see, he realized that her words, "I'll give you what no other woman can," had begun to take shape. It was not about possessions or promises of comfort. It was about life itself, about understanding, courage, and the rare gift of seeing the world in a way no one else could teach him. And he knew, with a deep certainty, that this was only the beginning of what he would learn from her. The next morning, the desert greeted them with a bright, fierce sun. Samuel woke before dawn, as usual, listening to the soft sounds of the settlement coming to life. Aita had already left, moving silently among the small huts, checking supplies and tending to her daily tasks. Samuel admired her discipline and calm, realizing that every action she took had a purpose. It was not just survival. It was a careful, practiced understanding of the world around her. After a simple breakfast of roasted corn and wild herbs, Aita motioned for Samuel to follow. Today, she said, they would leave the safety of the settlement and explore deeper into the desert. Samuel felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He trusted her, but he also knew the desert could be unforgiving, and that trust did not make danger disappear. As they walked, Aita began teaching him more advanced lessons. "The desert speaks if you know how to listen," she said. "The wind, the birds, even the rocks, they all tell stories. You only need to pay attention." Samuel listened carefully, trying to absorb everything. They followed a narrow, winding trail that led through tall cacti and jagged rocks. Aita stopped suddenly and pointed to a small imprint in the sand. "A coyote passed here last night," she said. "See the direction of its paws? It went straight to the water source." Animals are more honest than people. They never lie about where they are going. He studied the tracks, amazed at how much she could tell from something so small. "I would have missed that completely," he admitted. "That is why I am here," Aida said with a quiet smile. "I can show you what the land hides from careless eyes." As they moved on, she began teaching him to find food in unexpected places. She showed him small, edible plants hidden among rocks, roots that could be eaten after careful preparation, and insects that were safe to eat when no other food was available. Samuel tried to remember everything, realizing that knowledge like this could mean life or death in the desert. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, casting harsh shadows over the landscape. Samuel felt the heat pressing down on him, and for the first time he truly appreciated the value of Aita's guidance. Without her, he would have struggled, perhaps even been forced to turn back. With her, he felt capable, strong in ways he had never imagined. They stopped at a small, hidden spring. Aita knelt by the edge, showing Samuel how to collect water carefully to avoid disturbing the delicate ecosystem around it. "Every drop counts," she said. "Waste even a little, and it can mean hours of extra walking to find another source. Respect what you have, and it will respect you back." Samuel nodded, understanding the lesson not just in water, but in life. It was a careful balance: patience, observation, respect. These were not lessons he had learned as a cowboy, where speed and strength often mattered more than wisdom. After drinking and resting briefly, they continued their journey. Aita led him to a rocky ridge overlooking a wide valley. From there, Samuel could see for miles, jagged cliffs, rolling sand dunes, and distant mountains. The view was breathtaking, but Aita's eyes were not on the beauty. They were scanning the land. She pointed out subtle signs of wildlife, small trails worn by animals, and hidden water sources. Samuel was amazed at how much she noticed, and how important each small detail could be. As they began to descend into the valley, Aida's tone grew serious. "This area is dangerous," she said. "Bandits sometimes travel these trails, looking for travelers with horses or supplies. We must be careful. Remember everything I have taught you about observation and listening." Samuel felt a shiver of caution. He had faced danger before, but the thought of outlaws in the desert was frightening. He glanced at Aita, realizing that her calm confidence was as much a shield as her knowledge. He began to trust her completely, knowing that she would guide him safely if he listened and followed her instructions. They moved quietly, careful not to make noise. Aita pointed out small hiding spots where they could take cover if necessary, and places where they could observe the surrounding land without being seen. Samuel realized that these lessons went beyond survival. They were about strategy, awareness, and thinking ahead. Hours passed as they navigated the valley, and eventually they came upon signs of other travelers, broken branches, disturbed sand, and faint footprints. Samuel's heart raced, but Aida remained calm. "These tracks are fresh," she said. "They passed here very recently, but they are not dangerous unless they see us. Stay quiet and follow my lead." Samuel followed her carefully as they moved along the hidden path she had chosen. He marveled at her instinctive knowledge, at the way she seemed to move in harmony with the land. Every lesson she had taught him, every careful observation, came together now to keep them safe. He felt a growing respect for her courage and skill. By late afternoon, the signs of danger disappeared, and they reached a small oasis hidden among rocks and trees. The water was clear and cool, and the shade offered a welcome respite from the relentless sun. Aita knelt by the water, filling their containers and showing Samuel how to purify it using simple techniques. "This will keep us safe," she said. "Drink carefully, and always save some for emergencies." As they rested, Samuel finally spoke, his voice quiet. "I never imagined the desert could be so alive," he said. "I thought it was empty and harsh, but with your guidance it feels full of life and lessons." Aita looked at him, her dark eyes steady and thoughtful. "The desert is never empty," she said. "It is alive if you know how to see. Most travelers only notice what is easy to see, but life hides in the smallest details. If you learn to notice, it will teach you everything you need to survive." Samuel nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He realized that Aita had not only saved him from danger, but had also opened his eyes to a world he had never understood. The desert, once a place of solitude and challenge, had become a teacher, and Aita its guide. As evening approached, they made camp near the oasis. Samuel gathered firewood while Aita prepared a simple meal. The stars began to appear, stretching across the sky like a blanket of diamonds. Samuel felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. He was learning, growing, and surviving in ways he could never have imagined. And it was all because of her guidance. "Tomorrow we will move further," Aita said quietly as they sat by the fire. "The desert holds more secrets, more challenges. You must continue to observe, to learn, and to trust what you have been taught." Samuel nodded, looking at her with admiration. "I will," he said. "I have never met anyone like you. You are remarkable." Aita smiled faintly. "And you, Samuel, are learning what it means to truly survive. Remember, strength alone is not enough. Knowledge, patience, and respect are what will carry you through." As they settled to sleep under the stars, Samuel felt a growing certainty. The desert was harsh, full of danger and unpredictability, but with Aita by his side, he felt capable of facing whatever challenges lay ahead. He understood now that her words, "I'll give you what no other woman can," were not about wealth or comfort, but about life itself. Knowledge, courage, and a deep understanding of the world around him. And as he closed his eyes, listening to the soft sounds of the oasis in the desert night, he knew that the journey had only just begun. With every step, every lesson, and every moment of trust, Samuel was changing, learning to see the world in a way he never had before. Guided by a woman whose knowledge and spirit were unlike anything he had ever known. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the sand and rocks in shades of gold and red. Samuel awoke to the soft sound of birds and the faint rustle of leaves near the oasis. He stretched and looked toward Aita, who was already awake, carefully checking their supplies and studying the horizon. She had an air of quiet determination that never failed to impress him. Every day with her seemed to bring new lessons, not just about the desert, but about life itself. "Today we travel further," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The desert ahead is more dangerous. You must remember everything I have taught you. Watch, listen, and think before you act." Samuel nodded. He had learned much from her already, but he felt a mix of excitement and unease. He trusted her completely, yet he knew that the desert held dangers he could not predict. He adjusted his saddle, checked Clara's harness, and prepared for the journey. They left the oasis behind, following a narrow trail that wound between rocky cliffs. Aita moved ahead with a natural grace, scanning the landscape with sharp, intelligent eyes. Samuel followed, noticing the small details she pointed out. tracks of deer and coyotes, subtle changes in the wind, shadows that indicated hidden crevices in the rocks. He realized that survival in the desert was not just about strength, but about attention, patience, and understanding. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, beating down on them relentlessly. Samuel felt the heat pressing on him, but Aita's calm presence gave him courage. She stopped occasionally to point out hidden sources of water or edible plants, and he began to appreciate her skill in finding life where others would see only dryness and danger. It's then, as they descended into a narrow canyon, Aita suddenly held up her hand. Samuel froze. Ahead he could see faint tracks in the sand, fresh footprints of men. His heart quickened. Outlaws sometimes roamed these lands, and the thought of encountering them filled him with fear. "They are close," Aita whispered, her eyes sharp and alert. "Stay calm and follow my lead. Do not make any sudden movements." Samuel nodded, gripping the reins tightly. He followed her silently as she led him to a small outcropping of rocks that provided concealment. From their hidden spot, they could see 3 men moving along the trail, carrying rifles and supplies. Their expressions were rough, and Samuel immediately recognized the danger. They were likely looking for travelers to rob or harm. Aita studied the men carefully. "They are searching for easy targets," she said. "We are not theirs if we are cautious. Watch what I do." She signaled him to stay low and move quietly. They crept along the edge of the canyon, using rocks and shadows to remain unseen. Samuel's heart pounded in his chest, but he focused on following her instructions. Every step she took was precise, careful, and deliberate. He realized that this was another lesson, not just about the desert, but about strategy, observation, and courage under pressure. As they moved, one of the outlaws paused, looking around suspiciously. Samuel froze, holding his breath. Aita motioned for him to stay still. The man moved on, and they continued their careful journey, finally leaving the canyon and reaching a safer area. Samuel exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and admiration. Aita had guided them through danger without a single mistake. "You see," she said quietly once they were safe, "the desert tests not just your body, but your mind. You must be aware at all times. Never underestimate what you cannot see." Samuel nodded, humbled. He had survived dangerous paths before, but nothing had tested him like this. He realized that Aita's guidance was not just about survival. It was about understanding the world around him, predicting danger, and making careful choices. They continued their journey, moving through rolling hills and rocky outcrops. Along the way, Aita taught him more about finding food, reading animal tracks, and noticing changes in the weather. Samuel felt himself growing stronger, wiser, and more confident. He began to see the desert not as a place of emptiness, but as a living, breathing world full of lessons. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, Aita paused near a small cave. "We can rest here," she said. "It will provide shade and protection for the night." Samuel helped prepare the small campsite while Aita gathered firewood. As they sat by the fire, she began to tell him a story of her people, how they had lived in these lands for generations, learning the secrets of the desert from their ancestors. Samuel listened, captivated by the history and wisdom in her words. "The desert gives," she said, "but it also takes. Those who do not respect it will not survive. Knowledge, patience, and courage are the keys. Strength alone is not enough." Samuel nodded, reflecting on the day's events. He realized that he had learned more in these few days than he had in years of traveling. Aita had shown him the hidden paths, the signs of danger, and the small details that could mean life or death. But she had also taught him something deeper: the value of trust, patience, and observation. As night fell, they settled under the stars. Samuel thought about the outlaws they had avoided and the lessons he had learned from the day's journey. He felt a growing bond with Aita, not just as a guide, but as a teacher and companion. Her knowledge and courage had saved them, and he felt a deep gratitude and respect for her. Tomorrow, Aita said softly, we will move further into the desert. The land holds more challenges, more tests. Are you ready to continue? Samuel looked at her, feeling a mix of determination and excitement. I am, he said. I want to learn more. I want to survive and understand the desert the way you do. Aita smiled faintly. Then we continue. Remember, every step matters. Every choice counts. The desert does not forgive mistakes, but it rewards those who pay attention. As they settled to sleep, Samuel thought about the day's events, the danger they had faced, the lessons he had learned, and the growing trust between him and Aita had changed him. He realized that her promise, I'll give you what no other woman can, was becoming clearer. It was not about possessions or comfort. It was about life, knowledge, courage, and understanding the world in ways he had never imagined. The night was quiet, the stars bright above them. Samuel felt a sense of peace, knowing that with Aita by his side, he could face the desert's challenges and learn its secrets. The journey was far from over, but he felt ready, stronger, and wiser than he had ever been. And as he closed his eyes, he knew that the lessons of the desert, guided by Aita, would stay with him forever, shaping him into a man who could survive, understand, and respect the world around him. The sun rose slowly, casting a warm glow across the desert landscape. Samuel woke to the gentle sound of wind moving through the sagebrush and the soft rustle of Aita tending to the morning fire. Today, he realized, was different. The journey they had begun together was nearing a turning point. He had learned so much about the desert, about survival, and about trust, but he also understood that some decisions could not be postponed. Aita was already prepared, her movements smooth and purposeful. She motioned for him to follow. Today we reach the edge of the land where my people live, she said, her voice steady but carrying a quiet gravity. You will see what it means to survive here, not as a visitor, but as someone who understands the land and respects it. Samuel adjusted his saddle and followed her silently. He felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. He had learned to navigate the desert, to find water and food, and to avoid danger. But he knew that reaching the edge of the Apache lands meant entering a world he had only glimpsed through Aita's lessons. As they walked, Aita began to explain more about the traditions of her people. We live in harmony with the land, she said. Every action has meaning. Every decision affects not just ourselves, but those around us. That is why understanding and respect are so important. Samuel listened carefully, realizing that her teachings extended beyond survival. They were lessons in life, in responsibility, and in the delicate balance of nature. He began to understand that Aita's gift, what she had promised, was not something material or fleeting. It was knowledge, wisdom, and perspective that could change a person completely. By midday, they reached a high ridge overlooking a wide valley filled with trees, streams, and small settlements. Samuel could see the signs of life: smoke rising from chimneys, animals moving through the brush, and people tending to their homes. It was a peaceful scene, yet he could sense the strength and pride in the people below. They had survived here for generations, relying on knowledge, skill, and careful observation of the land. Aita paused and looked at him. "This is where my people live," she said. "You have traveled far, learned much, and proven your willingness to respect the land. Now you must decide how you will continue. The choice is yours. You can return to the paths you have always known, or you can walk further with me, learning what no other person can teach you." Samuel felt a rush of emotion. He thought of the long days in the desert, the lessons he had learned, and the bond that had grown between him and Aita. He realized that her offer was not just about survival. It was about connection, understanding, and seeing the world through eyes that had learned patience, courage, and respect over generations. "I want to continue," he said finally. "I want to learn from you, and I want to understand this world the way you do." Aita smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and relief in her eyes. "Then we will continue," she said. "But remember, knowledge is only valuable if you respect it. Strength alone will not carry you. You must always observe, listen, and think before you act." They descended into the valley together, moving carefully along the hidden paths Aita had taught him to notice. Samuel began to see the world in a new way. He noticed how the wind whispered through the trees, how animals moved with purpose, and how small signs in the land indicated hidden water and food. He realized that Aita had given him a gift far greater than survival skills. She had given him awareness, understanding, and a way to see life that few could ever experience. As they approached the settlement, they were greeted with cautious curiosity. People paused in their work to watch them pass. Aita moved confidently, her presence commanding respect. Samuel felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. He had never been part of a community like this, and he understood that trust would have to be earned. Aita introduced him to her family and friends, explaining who he was and why he had come. Samuel spoke carefully, showing respect for their customs and traditions. Slowly, the initial tension eased, and he began to feel accepted. He realized that this was another lesson Aita had been teaching him all along. Trust must be earned through respect, patience, and understanding, not demanded by force. Over the next few days, Samuel continued to learn. Aita taught him how to help with daily tasks, how to read the weather, and how to notice small changes in the land that indicated danger or opportunity. Each day brought new lessons, and Samuel began to feel a deep sense of connection, not just to Aita, but to the land and the people who had lived in harmony with it for generations. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of pink and gold, Samuel and Aita sat quietly by a stream. The water reflected the colors of the sky, and the air was calm and still. Samuel looked at her, feeling gratitude, admiration, and something deeper he could not yet name. "You have given me more than I ever imagined," he said softly. "I have learned to survive, yes, but I have also learned to see, to understand, and to respect. You have given me what no one else could." Aita looked at him, her dark eyes steady and thoughtful. "That is the gift I promised," she said. "Not just survival, but understanding, knowledge, courage, and awareness. These are what will guide you for the rest of your life. No one else could give you this because it comes from experience, respect, and the bond we have built." Samuel nodded, realizing the truth in her words. He understood now that the desert, the journey, and Aita's guidance had transformed him. He was no longer just a traveler or a cowboy. He was someone who could see the land, the people, and life itself in a new way. The following days were filled with more learning and exploration. Samuel helped gather food, cared for the animals, and practiced the skills Aita had taught him. He began to notice patterns in the land, to predict changes in the weather, and to move with awareness and caution. Each step reinforced the lessons he had learned, and each moment strengthened his connection to Aita and the people around them. One afternoon, as they rested on a rocky hill overlooking the valley, Aita spoke quietly. "Samuel, you have learned much, and you have grown strong in ways you did not imagine. But remember, the journey does not end here. Life is full of challenges, and understanding is a lifelong pursuit. Always observe, always respect, and always listen. Samuel nodded, feeling the depth of her words. He understood now that her promise, "I'll give you what no other woman can," was not a fleeting gift. It was a lifelong treasure: knowledge, wisdom, courage, and the ability to see the world clearly and fully. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the valley, Samuel and Aida sat together in silence, watching the sky turn from gold to deep blue. The desert around them seemed alive, full of secrets and lessons, and Samuel felt a sense of peace and purpose he had never known. He realized that the journey, the danger, the lessons, and the trust they had built were more valuable than any reward he could have imagined. Aita had not only guided him through the desert, she had changed the way he saw the world, the way he moved through life, and the way he understood himself. That night, as they slept under a sky full of stars, Samuel felt a deep sense of gratitude and wonder. He understood that Aida's gift was rare, powerful, and unique. No other woman could have given him what she had: the knowledge of the land, the courage to face danger, and the understanding of life in its most honest form. He closed his eyes, feeling a quiet confidence and a sense of connection that would stay with him forever. The desert had tested him, taught him, and transformed him, and he had learned that the greatest lessons often come from those who guide us with wisdom, patience, and care. And as the night carried on, with the stars shining brightly above, Samuel knew that his life had changed forever. He had received the gift Aita promised, a gift that could never be taken away, a gift that no one else could give. It was not about wealth, power, or possession. It was about life, understanding, courage, and the rare bond between two people who trusted and respected each other deeply. The journey was complete, but the lessons would last a lifetime. Samuel had been transformed, not just as a traveler in the desert, but as a man who could see, understand, and respect the world in ways he never imagined. And it was all because of Aita, the woman who had promised him something no other could, and who had delivered far more than he had ever dreamed.